Howdy.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being willing to share your story on camera with us today. We saw a lot of connections, and we see a lot of connections between your work and what the National Center for Literacy Education has been doing. And we'd love it if you would share your story. So could you start by sharing a little bit about both of your perspectives around what the issues are that you saw that kind of drove your partnership, and then where you've been going with that partnership together?
I'll start. My, uh, my role is a district curriculum and professional development coordinator for Lewisville ISD. And we're a 53,000-ish size district. We've got 15 middle schools, 7 high school campuses that have 5 feeder patterns. So I think the issues that really began our work with Carol's writing project would be trying to figure out how to best support struggling readers, struggling writers in a high accountability testing situation. We had a new test that was driving the graduation requirements for for our 9th and 10th grade students, and we had students who were failing a test that had never failed before. We had large numbers of students who needed retesting, and frankly, there was just a lot of fear around the Metroplex, around the state, um, about how to really help these kids be successful. And I think that we saw kind of a return to the drill and kill type work um, in a lot of our surrounding districts and even pockets in our own district where people were afraid to explore the solutions. Really, it was the more we test them, hopefully the better they'll get at that behavior. And we didn't see any testing success stories. There were no there weren't any places that we saw that were able to test the reality. And so we started as a district trying to explore ways to strengthen the student experience as well as the teacher experience so that we would have kind of hand-to-hand professional development along with student experiences that expand on what they've experienced in the past. And that's really where we approached Carol Wickstrom and Leslie Patterson with the North Star Texas Writing Project. We were looking for thought partners to explore this problem together.
So that's a great entry into my thinking about the whole process, because at North Star Texas Writing Project, we're affiliated with National Writing Project, and one of our core beliefs is that teachers are the best teachers of other teachers, and that programs don't fix things, but rather it's through a collaborative conversation and working back and forth that we really feel like changes can happen. And so when Eric approached us to work with his students, it was a gift, I would call, because it was like we were able to enter into the conversation of what needs to happen with students without trying to sell ourselves, but rather we were able to say, well, let's think about what needs to happen, and let's develop some shared understandings about the kind of work that's needed here. And we don't have a program, we don't have simple steps, but rather what North Star has, is like many other writing projects around the country, are really effective classroom teachers who have strong beliefs and strong student-centered work that they do. And so we totally understand that we want to build writers, not test takers and not reactionary kind of writers, but rather we want to think about whether it's ourselves as writers or our students as writers. And so Eric brought us into the conversation of how could we do this kind of work with students that didn't look like a program and made an opportunity, made it a way for the students to be writers and to have that experience. And to have high expectations for students who were at really having difficulty with the test. pushing the test aside and rather than not.
Can you talk a little bit about what that process looked like? So once you started working on this problem and finding needs and establishing some actions to take, what did that look like?
Well, I mean, I think both Carol and I are in the support realm, so a lot of that work, I think, became about looking at how do we put some things in place that support teachers at a resource level, at a professional learning level, but also with the immediate needs with the kids right in front of them. And so we try to think of ways to partner in job-embedded ways. We had to have some accelerated instruction for students in the summer. We had a huge need at the district, and every campus was really responsible for their own struggling students. They were really responsible for coming up with their own approaches, their own practices, and I think there was kind of a lack of equity in the approach of the district. And so we were able to really see that kind of immediate need and start to work together to try to fill that need and think about how that could really touch the culture of the district and expand into other places. So I mean, it started small, and then we began to find connections of, well, if we do this in the summer, and we see some good things with teachers coming in and observing our summer work, teachers being excited about the type of resources that they're seeing, then in the middle of the fall, we try to find some job-embedded ways where we could pull groups of teachers together, work on some of these processes, and then they could turn around the next day and start putting some of this to work in the classrooms.
So a big piece of that also is that because our project is made up of classroom teachers, I was able to go to really specific teachers that I know really put their work right into these struggling kind of writers and readers and have strong beliefs about what needs to happen for them. And so they said, we can figure out what kind of a summer, for lack of a better word at this point, program, and which they turned into a camp. And so once it's turned into a camp, that changes the whole view of what's going on. And so bringing the students into the conversation then was much easier than here's a kit.
Right.
And it's the same way that the teachers then were brought into it, because you didn't just say, here, take this, but rather let's work side by side and see how, see what you do and what I do. We have the same curriculum that the teachers developed, but how we're going to use it together and bring the students into it.
I think that right there was exactly what teachers and students were struggling with. Is we saw that everything was reactionary. It wasn't responsive. It was, as test scores would come out and leadership all over the place would say, oh my gosh, what are we going to do to those kids so that they will then be successful? What are we going to do to those teachers? What are we going to prescribe? What are we going to force to change? And really, that approach was not resulting in buy-in from either side. Kids weren't showing up to after-school tutorials because how many of them had been part of a program in the past, and they were still struggling. So, why am I going to waste more time after school? That summer program that turned into a camp, we really focused on, like, if it wasn't working in the old way, well, how do we be more invitational? How do we? And that was something that y'all did in Keller in Denver. Really getting together groups of kids to do this type of work in the summer. And so how can we extend that approach into our accelerated instruction and have people want to come? We actually had people calling their principals and calling their friends and saying, hey, you got to get down here. We're seeing some really great stuff. You're missing out. And it was very organic from the kids' point of view. It wasn't all top down. It was kind of a
back and forth. I think it's a really back and forth exchange. And one of the first pieces that came out of the first camp was when teachers were invited to see what the students had created during this 2-week camp. some of the teachers were walking away saying, how did you get this particular child to write? I worked with this child all year and I never got this. And so that made it even more powerful, so that the second year of the camp, as we began to again shift the curriculum and broaden it and use more of the kinds of work that was happening in Lewisville, then teachers were saying, oh, this isn't an extra, this is their building on this. We want our students there. And so it's a constant, a very organic piece. And then as more of the Lewisville teachers were brought in to the summer camps, they were also brought in to our writing project. So it's also those teachers understanding the total beliefs about the district, what was happening, the total understanding of the curriculum. So they're building work that they know is really frontline instruction. And that's really what Eric's goal is. Not that this be something that we have to sustain every summer, but rather that we keep adding on teachers, so building capacity and sustainability for what's happening for the students and with the students.
Absolutely.
You know, that puts us out of a job, but that's okay.
That's the goal, right?
That is the goal. It's just the
is.
goal of a classroom teacher. You know, my job is to build your independency as a student so that you don't need me. And that's the goal of the writing project, is to build that capacity so that we can move our work someplace else.
So what are the next steps? What are the next goals? What's down the road?
Well, I think that what we've begun that transfer of responsibility. We started off where it was really trying to get the capacity of staff up so that we could run programs like the summer camps and some various type of tutorial models that would invite students in to work that would touch their identity. We have about 90% of our high school English 1 and 2 teachers who have gone through these cooperative workshops with North Star. We've got about 80% of our middle school and 7th grade teachers who do this work. So I think that our next steps are really about trying to develop leadership within our district to continue to train and partner with new teachers, teachers coming in who were expected to really work in a writer's workshop, but haven't really experienced that work yet. So how do we support them coming in to get to where some of the colleagues are? So that's a big part of it.
And for North Star, our goal as we've been looking at our own sustainability and building capacity, what we're going to do is to invite these teachers, the Lewisville teachers, who have been partnering with our TCs in the summer to be part of North Star as part of our teacher consultants with a little bit more professional development, because what we are thinking, so teachers like Sherry that are really all in, but she normally you would have to do a month-long summer institute. But these individuals are coming with so much more, and so we're trying to think, what's the fast track? Because not only do we see them as colleagues right from the beginning, but also we need more teachers who can go to other places and do professional development. And so that builds our capacity and sustainability as well.
And they become that coherence builder for your new teachers coming in.
Exactly. So it's very powerful. So when we were in the practice exchange, for my story, I used just one school in Lewisville that was a successful partnership. So it's one of the high schools in Lewisville. And we've worked with them for, I think, about 4 years now as well. We just started with the English Language Arts department. We started small, and then we worked into doing several PD days in a row, and then continuing this ongoing piece. And then last year we worked more with the content teachers and help them understand more about why it's important to do sustained silent reading every day. And we got books for their classrooms, and they're excited because their students are actually reading relevant books about science, about math, about social studies, and so the students are suddenly think, oh, it's important for me to be in this class. And so this year we're continuing to work with the ELA teachers, but we also did professional development for the new teachers that were on campus. So to bring them into that same coherence that is on that campus. And so that's another big piece of the partnership, because that particular school is really our cheerleader.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. And their work has spread throughout the district because they were kind of the original model in some of that work. But you know, like we talked about the fast track with teachers, and I think that there's another side of this that, I mean, the fast track, it lasted a couple of years.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
Yes.
so they, you know, traditionally the TCs, you know, would go through like a 4-week camp in the summer. But if you look at the learning that has been going on, you know, in the sustained period, I think that was only really possible because we were able to partner as a district and really sustain the quality of that work and the fidelity of that work. You know, watching that expand in the 5 campuses, I think as the real big next step is getting more partnership with principals and showing principals some ways that they can really take advantage of the expertise on the campus. And we've got some principals in Lewisville that I think are really ahead of the curve. Pam Flores over at Killer High School. She really has harnessed the work that our mission has been doing for a couple of years and used it to influence that science support. And you know, we've got science doing, you know, SSR. And if that would have been my
that's amazing.
Well, and if that would have been one of my personal goals, it never would have happened.
Yeah.
You know, like as a district person, that's not something that you can really do.
Right.
That is something that works best
Organic.
in an organic way, with the culture of the campus. And that's the next step, is harnessing those principles as real instructional leaders.
Well, and your social studies teachers are doing literature circles.
Right. Not just science too.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
all right, so I have goosebumps again. This is too fun. I wish I could like just interview people all day.
Like Terry Gross. Yeah.
And I don't have to do anything. You guys just say it all, and there's nothing I'm doing except listening and getting excited about the cool work going on. So tell me a little bit. You all helped to design the practice exchange session that NCLE has been experimenting with the last few years as an opportunity for some shared conversation, collaboration, and inquiry across kind of building that social network of ours. So could you talk a little bit about your experience that you had yesterday and maybe some key takeaways for you?
So what I really appreciated was the individuals, the 2 of the individuals that were at my table were so excited to be in a session where there was really a sharing. It wasn't a sitting lit piece, but it was really about, oh, this is about a conversation that we have, and we can participate in this conversation. And the uniqueness of each of the individual stories. Because one individual just talked about a partnership with one teacher, and then another one talked about the partnership with the entire teacher education program. And I was just like, oh, those were pieces that I didn't even think about. And then another teacher, individual rather, that was at the table talked about her partnership with her teaching partner. And so it's like that gave the opportunity for so many ideas to be brought into the conversation that it made it more collaborative. And again, it was working with people on these stories. And as we talked about it, we thought about how all of the stories, although sad at some points, came out positive because of the experience that had evolved over time, and that length of time that these were established.
Yeah, really interesting insight about that, about how rich diversity and difference can contribute to your learning.
Exactly. And so that whole notion for me was exciting. It added a really good layer to what my own thing is. This is really working.
Nice.
I think that the practice exchange helps open up all the possibilities around the narratives you haven't really considered yet. And I think we get a little preoccupied with our realm of influence. And that was part of the practice exchange yesterday. I was really looking at, so the issues that we're seeing, which ones are within our realm of influence. And I think that hearing the stories of others and really having a chance to have a full discussion about their stories with them, I think it opens up possibilities of extending your realm of influence. I think sometimes you realize, well, certain goals are not set for us because they're set by the state or by the district if we're in a district position. However, how do we attach our classroom goals, our instructional goals, our humanitarian goals to these established goals and gain traction through grants, through partnerships, through publicity, through there's so many different pathways to this work, and I think we sometimes only know the system we know. So hearing the connections to pre-service teachers and summer work with students, just like Chicago.
That's right. I forgot.
Governor's State.
Governor's State and your summer camp and the possibilities for it. Yeah.
Right. That blew me away. And I thought, okay, so they can do it for pre-service teachers. What can we put in place for first-year teachers or teachers coming on board from, we can start this work sooner than we ever thought before. How does that work partnering with our student teachers that we get from University of North Texas or University of Texas at Dallas or things like that? So
that's really interesting, this tie to the realms of influence. I wonder what would happen if we thought about our concerns and where we saw our realm of influence before we started those conversations, and if we had the conversations, and then whether or not we would have seen those realms of influence differently as you cross through those conversations. That's really interesting.
And the two key words that came out of the group that I was with was about listening and relationships. And I was like, oh, thank you. Because so many times in a writing project, when we go to talk to school districts about professional development, we're really there to listen. We're really there to listen about what they need, what's happening, so what, now what. And so we're trying to build that shared understanding and that relationship. And too many times we're not taken seriously, I think, because that's a little too touchy-feely.
It's hard, yeah.
And so that whole notion that everyone said it was about the relationships they were building, and it was about that listening that was so important. And those are the two most important things you have to do when you're starting a classroom.
Absolutely.
Is to build relationships and then to listen to what your students are saying before you can build your syllabus as strong as you want. But if that's all it is, this is my best idea. But until I meet with the students and then start listening to them, I really don't even think about what I'm going to do with that syllabus. So it's the same kind of thing.
That's what's grim, I think, about what we see in these systems of fear, where you have high accountability and you have leaders who are making decisions and they're reacting and they're not responding. They're putting off those relationships. And every time we delay a relationship and then buy a product that can be used the next day with a kid, but we're not making a difference in the relationship with the kid and the teacher, and the relationship with us and the teachers. We're delaying that relationship. We're delaying our success.
Exactly. We're delaying the student's success because those kids, whatever you want to call them, are often just gathering dust in classrooms because there isn't the bond, like you were saying. But if you build that relationship, then you're really paying attention.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that place on a continuum between being compliance driven versus being commitment driven.
Yes.
Yeah. Really sort of a place.
And you have to have a system that is patient enough to tolerate some sort of solutions. And I will say I think that's where the luck comes in.
Yes.
Because I'm able to do what I'm able to do with gathering partnerships and exploring these solutions and having these conversations with so many leaders in the district, your principals, your directors, and things like that, because they're tolerant enough to hear about it.
Right.
And there's some trust there with teachers. We're very lucky to have that trust.
Well, and something else that I'm thinking about yesterday's practice exchange and something that happened with the school that we partnered with is that a couple of times around the table, individuals were saying that what they did was not a big add-on to what was already going on, but rather what we did at the school, the particular school that we were with at first was, so what are you already doing?
Yes.
And that's another piece of what people were saying. So what are you already doing? So how does this fit with what you're doing? And is it fit to the purpose? And if it's not fit to purpose, then this is not a good relationship, but rather if it fits our purpose and it adds to what you're doing, and teachers do not feel like it's one more thing that's landing in their room that somebody's going to expect me to do, I think it makes a big difference. And so I think that Lewisville has been very strategic. And the people that I was listening to yesterday, they were strategic about what they were doing.
In those successes.
Exactly.
Awesome. You all, thank you so very, very much for sharing. You did fabulous.
All right.
Fantastic.